"She's calling 911 again," my neighbor whispered, peeking over the fence as Karen stood in my driveway, phone to her ear, shrieking like the world was ending. "There's a huge illegal party. He's blocking the street. Send officers immediately," she yelled so loud the whole block heard her. I clenched my jaw but didn't move, watching her pace in circles like she owned the place. This was my first night in the new house, a small celebration with family and close friends. But Karen acted like I'd staged a riot. She stomped over to my porch, glaring at everyone inside through the windows, and hissed, "You people don't belong here. The HOA never approved this." I stepped outside, calm but firm. "Karen, this is my home. My deed, my land. You don't get a say." She smirked, lowering her phone only long enough to sneer, "We'll see what the police say about that." The tension thickened, my guests falling silent, waiting for the flashing lights they knew were coming. What Karen didn't know, what made me almost laugh despite the rage boiling in my chest, was who exactly I had invited tonight. This wasn't just a housewarming. It was something else entirely, something Karen was about to regret discovering the hard way. Karen didn't even wait 5 minutes before the distant sirens started echoing down the street. She folded her arms smugly, like she'd already won, whispering to herself, "They'll shut this whole thing down." The neighbors peeked out from their porches, some curious, some shaking their heads, as 2 squad cars rolled up, then 4, then 6. Red and blue lights painted the entire block like a crime scene. Karen's face lit up with sick satisfaction. "Perfect," she muttered. "Now he'll learn who really runs this neighborhood." But the second those doors opened, Karen's confidence faltered. Uniform after uniform stepped out, and none of them even glanced her way. Instead, they nodded. At me. One of the officers walked straight over, a grin tugging at his lips. "So, this is the new place, huh? Looks great," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. My guest laughed nervously, relief rippling through the air, while Karen blinked, completely lost. "Excuse me," she barked, stomping toward the officers. "This man is hosting an unauthorized gathering. He's blocking the street. You need to arrest him right now." Her voice cracked as more cruisers pulled up, more badges stepping out, some even waving at my wife through the doorway. I leaned against the porch rail, watching her unravel. "Karen," I said slowly, letting the moment build, "you really should have asked who exactly I invited tonight." Her face drained of color as realization started creeping in. Karen spun around, her voice shrill as she pointed at me. "Don't just stand there, arrest him. He's disturbing the peace, he's trespassing, he's dangerous." The closest officer raised a brow, exchanging a look with the others before chuckling under his breath. "Dangerous? Lady, he trained half the guys standing here tonight." The crowd gasped, and Karen froze. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her confidence slipping. I finally stepped off the porch, closing the distance between us. "You wanted the police, Karen? Well, you got them. Every single one of them. Half this city's officers are in my living room right now, eating barbecue." The guests inside erupted in laughter, officers waving their plates in proof. Karen's jaw dropped, her voice suddenly weak. That's not possible. No normal person has that kind of pull." I smirked, leaning closer so the neighbors could hear every word. "You're right. No normal person does. But I'm not exactly normal, Karen, and you just tried to humiliate the wrong man in front of the very people who know the law better than you ever will." Her eyes darted nervously between the uniforms, waiting for even one of them to back her up. But every face she met was stone cold. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to recover. You're all being fooled. He's breaking HOA rules. This whole party is illegal." But the officers didn't move. One of them pulled off his cap, shaking his head with a laugh. Ma'am, we're standing in his house, eating his food, on his property. Nothing illegal about that. The neighbors murmured louder now, some even chuckling at Karen's meltdown. She clenched her fists, stamping her heel on the driveway like a spoiled child. The HOA owns this block. I have authority, she screeched. That was the final straw. The senior officer stepped forward, his tone sharp. Authority? The HOA doesn't own a single inch of this man's land. And making false reports to 911? That's a crime. Karen's face went pale. No, I thought, she stammered, but the whispers around her turned into full-blown laughter. People pulled out their phones, recording every second. I folded my arms, letting the humiliation sink in. I locked eyes with her, my voice calm but cutting. You wanted to make a scene tonight, Karen? Congratulations. The whole neighborhood just saw who you really are. Her breathing grew erratic, but instead of backing down, her desperation pushed her into something even worse. Karen's desperation boiled over. She suddenly lunged toward the porch, shoving past a couple of guests as she shouted, "If the cops won't do their job, I'll handle it myself." Gasps erupted as she grabbed a glass off the table and hurled it against the wall, shards scattering across the floor. My wife pulled our daughter back instantly, her voice sharp. "Stay behind me." The officers stepped forward, but I held up a hand, my eyes locked on Karen. "Careful," I warned quietly. "You're seconds away from crossing a line you can't walk back from." But Karen only grew louder, pointing a trembling finger at me. "This man is dangerous. He doesn't deserve to live here. The HOA will have him out by morning." That's when the senior officer pulled something from his pocket, a folded document. He raised it high for everyone to see. "Karen, you need to stop. We already confirmed this property. Deed's clean. He owns it outright. The HOA has no control here." The crowd gasped, phones catching every word. Karen's face twisted in shock, like the ground had just slipped from under her. She opened her mouth to argue, but no sound came out. I tilted my head, voice calm but laced with steel. "Funny thing, Karen. You keep trying to take my house, but the truth is, you never had any power here to begin with." Karen's lips quivered as the paper flashed in front of her. The words, "property deed," bold enough for everyone in the crowd to see. The neighbors leaned in, whispering, phones still recording every second. One woman from across the street called out, "So all this time, you've been lying to us." Karen spun toward her, shaking her head violently. No, you don't understand. He tricked you all. He's dangerous." Her voice was shrill, almost panicked, but no one was buying it anymore. The senior officer folded the deed calmly and slipped it back into his pocket. "Enough, Karen. You abused 911. You lied to your neighbors, and you trespassed on his property." The tension in the air shifted. Suddenly, the woman who always defended her stayed silent. The man who usually nodded at her demands crossed his arms. Karen's empire was crumbling right in front of her. I stepped forward slowly, letting my words cut through the silence. "You thought you'd embarrass me tonight, but all you've done is expose yourself." Karen's face twisted, her eyes darting from one neighbor to another, searching for support. None came. For the first time, she looked small, cornered. But instead of surrendering, she hissed through her teeth, "This isn't over. You'll regret this." And that was the moment the officer at her side reached for his cuffs.